Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Really appreciate you all showing up, tuning in, all that kind of good stuff. Please, before we get into it, make sure that you hit that rate, subscribe, and share button. Also hit the comments, right? Let me know what you think, what your opinions are, how we're doing on the show, things along those lines, what you want to hear, talk about, and all that. So as I've talked about before, there's a lot of platform changes going on. Captain Hunter's podcast is going to change to Hunter's podcast. It's changing to Hunter's podcast because I want to focus more on men's issues. I want to talk to the men. I want to make sure the men are showing up, becoming the men that we need them to be. I think that the manosphere that is blowing up has some good ideas to it. I really do. But I also think that there's some really bad ideas to it. So we need to iron out the rough edges, and I want to be part of those rough edges that are helping to become smooth. So that's the purpose that I want to do that. So I think that men need to show up. We need to become the leaders, protectors, providers of our families first, and then of our communities. And I want to be one of those persons that is going along and making sure that we're getting to where we need to be. Having said that, I really want to focus on men's issues, as I just mentioned, but these stories are just too juicy, just too good to be ignored. So we gotta talk about them. So a few stories here before we get into it. Hey, did you guys hit that rate, subscribe, and share button? And make sure that you're commenting, right? Make sure that you guys do that, please. Really would appreciate it. So let's start off with a story here that we've all probably heard about by now. A lot of craziness, right? Just when you don't think that anything could get any worse, right? It's always going to be worse. It's always going to be crazy and all that. So the police chief down in some Mississippi Delta area there was bragging about how he was killing N-words, shooting at a black man 119 times, and he was recorded. So this story I'm going to read to you from the Washington Post. So I'm going to read this because I think a lot of it is really important here. A police chief in Mississippi was fired Wednesday after a leaked recording showing that the official had bragged about killing 13 people in a line of duty and used the N-word repeatedly, including to describe one black person. The white man says he shot at least 119 times. Let's stop right there. So they said Wednesday. This was written July 21st. That would make that date. Of course, I can't get my. So probably the 20th or so. So there's so much wrong with this. Let's delve into what's wrong with this, right? So just from that one paragraph that I just read there, what's wrong with this? How is it that this man, if he killed one person, two people, three people, right, there's no one looking into it? This is the problem with law enforcement, and this is why no one is respecting what a lot of the changes that we're doing. This is the problem right here. When we try to fight and try to do things, try to make some changes, transparency, body cameras, civilian review boards, all these different type of measures that people want in order to bring accountability, transparency, things along those lines, they just don't seem to be going over. And this is why. Did he really kill 13 people in the line of duty? That's a crazy amount of people to be mowing down in your lifetime. Did we mention this guy's the chief of police? Did we mention he's the chief of police? The racist, homophobic, and expletive-laden remarks that Sam Dobbins, the chief in the small town of Lexington, made during an April conversation with an officer caused an uproar in the Mississippi Delta community. Though it's a 60-minute long conversation, it was recorded by Robert Lee Hooker, a black man. Gotta love these names out of Mississippi. Robert Lee Hooker. This is a black guy's name. Robert Lee Hooker, a black man who resigned as an officer from the Lexington Police Department last week because he described it as a toxic work environment. Toxic work environment. I mean, this is just crazy, right? So he's going around. It was so toxic that he decided to record what was going on just to prove what was happening. You can't make this up, right? This is just absolutely nuts. In the recording later obtained by the Washington Post, Dobbins can be heard. So the Washington Post listened to this, boasting to Hooker about all the men he had killed when he was an officer. I've killed 13 men in my career, justified, he said, according to the recording. In my line of duty, I've shot and killed 13 different people. Now, if you're imagining him, I'm reading this, but if you're imagining him saying this with a Southern drawl, then that's what does that say about you, right? What does that say about us? While describing an alleged shootout in the cornfield, Dobbins claimed to Hooker that he saved 67 kids in the school by shooting a black man more than 100 times. Why? I shot that N-word 119 times. Oh, okay, with a question mark. Dobbins said to Hooker. Remember, Hooker's a black man. Dobbins said to Hooker, adding that the man he shot was DRT, dead right there. It's unclear what case he's referencing, Dobbins reiterated. But Dobbins reiterated the vehicle was shot 319 times, but he was hit 119 times by me. Was he the only one shooting? How many times did he have to reload? I don't think I carried 119 rounds when I was working. I mean, wow, just wow. Wow. So I think that, just to go back to Hooker, we're going to continue reading more of this in a second here. But just to reiterate the problems that I have with this is that, first of all, he was allowed to do this. He had the brazen intestinal fortitude, testicular fortitude to talk to a black man like this. He saw nothing wrong with it. He's bragging about it. This is the type of problem that people have with the police department. This is it right here, right there, right? This is it. This is it. So here's just a little piece of the recording. We'll do this right now.
In my career, I have shot and killed in the line of duty 13 different people.
You just shot so many motherfuckers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Justified, bro.
Okay.
Ask around. They ain't gonna tell you no.
What other say around you don't matter to me. I'm talking about me and you, baby.
I'm telling you, 13 people on my numbers, okay?
Yeah.
Justified. I'm talking about man had a gun, man had died. Okay?
You and him.
Yeah.
Right.
Got a big ass corn shootout, man. A cornfield over there. Jimmy Dale Thomas, he worked it. Justified, bro. I shot that 119 times. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I saved 67 kids in a school. Okay?
Yeah.
The rest of my department, they faded out, bro. They got scared.
Okay, so that was Dobbins and Hooker having that conversation there, right? As Backlash Mountain in Lexington, a town of 1,600 people, just 1,600 people, that's it. 80% of the 1,600 people who live there are black. And this is how this guy's talking about the people that he killed and using the N-word and all that kind of stuff. The Board of Aldermen voted 3-2 Wednesday to oust Dobbins effective immediately. Who are the two people who didn't vote against it? Now, in politics, right, some of the reasons that sometimes people don't want to oust individuals is because of the lawsuits that would come across. It's because it would cost more with litigation, just trying to get him out. So that's probably, I'm hoping that that's why, and not because they actually sympathize with what he said. So it probably was a financial aspect to get rid of this person. But I think that sometimes you can't allow this man to effectively police what's 80% of 1,600, whatever that number is, right? It's got to be like 1,000 people, right? 1,000 people, 1,200 people, something like that. Of them are black. He cannot effectively supervise and or police those types of individuals. He's lost their trust. You cannot allow this man to continue. Cannot allow it. Once we heard it, I was just appalled and angry. Cardell Wright, the paralegal for Julian, the civil rights and international human rights group organization that obtained the audio from Hooker, told the Post. Wright, the president of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, added, "Just to see the hatred in your own backyard was disturbing. We knew we had to do something immediately. Neither Dobbins nor Hooker immediately responded for requests for comment early Thursday. Messages left from the mayor's office were also not immediately returned." So this guy Wright, Cardell Wright, he's a paralegal and he's the president of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. He's surprised. I'm surprised that he's surprised. It's Mississippi. Who's surprised at this? Who's surprised at any of this? So I don't know. So that's one story there. So this guy, I mean, but again, the audacity that this man had to speak like that in front of another black man? Who's doing the investigations? Is the state of Mississippi investigating all the 13 shootings that he's done in the past? Were they all really justified? And, you know, most officers within their career don't ever fire their gun, sometimes don't even draw their weapons. Contrary to what people read in the newspaper, contrary to what people believe, it's just not the truth that people are always running around here shooting people. However, this particular guy has managed to kill 13 people. You know, the psychological evaluations had to be done, you know, decompressing. Before I did a story about a shooting that had happened in California. They did not put the people on administrative leave or anything like that. So we gotta come along with some streamlined ways of how we handle officer involved shootings, when they can return to duty, how long they have to be on administrative leave, how administrative duty, sit behind a desk in order to decompress, to get through the media storm, to make sure that they're okay. We got to come up with some streamlined way in order to do this, because this is just madness. And how long has he been talking like this? And again, that's another big part of the problem. How long has this man been talking like this? How long has this man been allowed to operate along these lines? And the problem is that he's obviously been doing this for such a long time. That it was just second nature to him. Didn't see anything wrong with it. That's just the way we are. You know, this is our nature, our culture. This is what we do it. This is the way we do it down here in the South. So finally, this man Hooker, who ended up resigning, probably because he knew there was backlash going to be coming, right? He probably wouldn't be getting. There's definitely was going to be backlash coming. You can say what you want about some of these other laws that have been passed about duty to intervene and all that. There's going to be backlash. People slow to back him up, not answering his calls, shunned at parties and events and stuff. You know, he put the town on blast, put the department on blast, and then he got out of there. So just crazy. So speaking of toxic working environments, let's go to another story here. Speaking of toxic working environments, entire North Carolina Police Department resigns after new town manager is hired. The entire police department in North Carolina resigned after the hiring a new town manager. Police and other officials in the small town of Kenly, North Carolina, have submitted mass resignation letters citing stress, hostile work environment, and an inability to continue the department's long betterment projects. In a town letter to a manager, Justine Jones, Police Chief Josh Gibson expressed regret towards the negative changes he felt were occurring in the department. In my 20 years at the Kenly Police Department, we have seen ups and downs, but especially in the last 3 years, we have made substantial progress that we had hoped to continue. However, due to a hostile work environment now present in the town of Kenly, I do not believe progress is possible, Gibson wrote. So here's what happened. A new town manager comes in. Now, this woman, Justine Jones, had worked in various departments, including Minneapolis, city governments, not police departments. She worked in various police departments, worked in various government municipalities, not in police department, throughout the country, including Minneapolis, in other places. She comes in and wants to make a massive changes, right? And so in 3 years, they've been making these changes. And finally, the department said, including the chief said, listen, enough is enough. We can't make all these changes. It's a hostile work environment and whatever. So she's probably threatening to suspend, discipline people, fire people, whatever, if they didn't get on the program. And so this is the resistance again. And listen, we don't know exactly what the changes were. Maybe she was hostile. I don't know. But so we don't know what the changes were. We haven't received that yet. But we can assume, I'm assuming that she wanted to make some serious changes to transparency, probably get body cameras, fill out some statistical data, find out who's being stopped for traffic stops, all this kind of stuff. She's looking into all this type of thing, and the city officers just don't like it. This is my assumption. So I could be wrong. Maybe she was just a really not a pleasant person to work for and was micromanaging or whatever. It could have been a number of things. I also remember hearing a story like this from another time where an entire police department had quit I looked for it and I couldn't find it. But as I read through this article, there's a link to click it, which says Missouri City Police Chief unexpectedly resigns along with every single officer. So apparently this happened in another place too. There's a problem within law enforcement. They're having a hard time getting employees. They're having a hard time getting individuals to work there. They're having a hard time. They're suffering from this. Turnover rate is really, really high. People are going to one department, getting hired by one department, getting the training, getting experience, and then taking their 401k and taking their time and experience and going to another place after 2 or 3 years. Big problem with law enforcement. If they can get people to even take the test in the first place, right? And stories like this is why these are problematic times. So it is with heavy heart that I take this action. I've been with the town since 2004 and I fully expected to finish my law enforcement career with the town of Kenly. Unfortunately, there are decisions being made that jeopardize my safety and make me question what the future will hold for a Kenly police officer, wrote G.W. Strong. While others addressed their resignation to Gibson, the police chief himself submitted it to Jones. So, yeah, so a lot of mass resignations. People didn't want to live there. People didn't want to work there. Now, when you talk about jeopardizing my safety, town managers really should consult with and talk with, and not act, but with their police administration, their chiefs, assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, captains, whatever the rank structure is. They really should get a feeling of what it takes to keep the officers safe, to do their jobs while keeping the community safe, and adhere to many of the social changes, police department changes that the communities and society wants to make. They've got to come together on that. Going into departments, barking orders, and you've never been a police officer, just wanting to make a bunch of changes that you read in the paper, you read in some law journal or whatever, without actually talking to your police chief is a bad idea. It's a bad idea. You gotta talk with them and come to some type of compromise. So Jones was just hired as town manager last month after serving in various local government positions in other states. Her new position was celebrated by the town of Kenly in the press June conference. So she just came in. I thought she was there for 3 years. No, so they'd already been making some changes for 3 years. Jones gets there, and after a month, she's like, "We're making some changes," and they just like, "We can't deal with this. We've been doing stuff for 3 years. Here you are adding fuel to the fire. We're out of here." Jones has dedicated her career to public service over the last 16 years, during which he worked in progressively responsible positions with local governments in Minnesota. I said Minneapolis. It was actually Minnesota, Virginia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. The town wrote in a statement, she began her municipal career as an executive assistant to the city manager and national urban fellow in the city of Norfolk, Virginia. So I'm assuming she's a sister of color. I'm assuming there's no pictures here of that. Police leadership and active duties were resigned, and I think that's all. I think that's all I need we need to go over from that story. So I am looking forward to reading some press conferences from the city, from the mayor, from the town manager, and seeing what exactly the changes were, because I think that's really important. Were they resistant to changes? It sounds like they were trying to make some changes over 3 years. Maybe the changes were too slow, and so they hired a new town manager to say, "Listen, come in and manage not only the city finances or whatever, but bring our department in our city and our municipality into a different direction, but also get a hold of this police department." I would also be interested to know what the city, what the people of the town thought about the traffic stop, police interactions, officer friendly, community service, and things along those lines. All that's going to be important. Okay, what other story we got for you today? Oh yeah, murder charge dropped against a New York City bodega clerk in self-defense case. I talked about this in a short little brief video that I did. If you guys aren't following me on Instagram, it's CPTL Hunter. I just started doing TikTok videos. Again, that's CPTL Hunter. So make sure you go over there and check out some of the videos that I've done. So I did a video about this particular case. So a few weeks ago, there was a man, and I'm going off of memory, I'm not reading this here. So a man, actually a woman walks into a store and she starts having an argument with the guy, with the bodega owner or worker, over a bag of chips. The woman gets out, leaves the store without the chips, and then gets her boyfriend. The boyfriend gets a battery in his back and wants to come to his woman's honor and wants to defend her and all this kind of foolishness. Goes behind the counter starts an argument with the guy. Now, the guy's like 32, 33, maybe 35, somewhere in his mid to early 30s, somewhere in there. The store clerk, whose name is Jose Alba, was being intimidated. He was touched. He was pushed down. All this videos on YouTube. And then in self-defense, as Alba's trying to walk away from this man, remember, he's behind the man, the assailant, ultimately the murder victim, is behind the counter in a place he shouldn't be. And then he stabs him in self-defense. The prosecutor initially arrested him. Public outcry comes when everybody sees the video. They then lowered the bond, and now finally they lowered the bond. He got out of Rikers Island for the detention facility. And now after more public pressure, because that wasn't good enough, because of the castle doctrine, your right to stand your ground, all that kind of stuff, he's now end up being released. So let's read the story here. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office on Tuesday dropped a murder charge against bodega store clerk Jose Alba, who fatally stabbed another man earlier this month, and what he said was an act of self-defense. Prosecutors filed a motion in the Manhattan Criminal Court to dismiss the second-degree murder charge against Alba because they could not prove his use of deadly force was unjustified. Listen, they should have known that when they first watched it. Alba, right, the store clerk, was 61, fatally stabbed Austin Simmons, 35, on July 1st after a confrontation at the Blue Moon convenience store in Manhattan. Alba was working at the bodega store when Simon, his girlfriend, and her 10-year-old daughter were shopping, according to NBC New York. When the family's EBT card malfunctioned, Alba reported snatched a candy bar from the girl's hand because she couldn't purchase it. Simon's girlfriend and daughter left the store. Simon returned and attacked Alba behind the counter. During the fight, Alba grabbed a knife and stabbed Simon 3 times in the heart, lung, and jugular, according to the outlet. The incident was politicized and created a division between those who wanted to see Alba jailed for murder and others who said the bodega clerk was acting in self-defense. It clearly was self-defense, in my estimation. Bodega store associations and all that. Even the mayor, Eric Adams, defended the decision to drop the charges against Alba. I stand with them on that. So. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Rate, subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. Hit that thumbs up, like button. What other stories we got here? Oh, I want to talk about this a little bit, right? Because we talk about self-defense and right to defend yourself. So if you have not heard, New York, for a long time was a state that reserved the right to, refuse or make an individual who was seeking a gun permit prove that they actually needed it, right? So in other words, if I went down to fill out a request for a gun permit, the state of New York would say, well, you got to prove to us why you needed it. Are you being threatened? Is somebody going to rob your store? Not if you're a store owner and it's been robbed in the past. All this hoops that they made people jump through. Took it to the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court, along with their decisions to roll back Roe v. Wade. The United States Supreme Court said, what you guys are doing in New York is ridiculous. It's a shall issue state. So unless you have some kind of mental history, or if you have restraining orders or something else in your background or past that prohibits you to get a gun, you're not going to get one. But these liberals in New York, that wasn't good enough for them. Oh, no. Oh, no. So now from the NPR, gun applicants in New York will have to submit their social media accounts for review. So again, they just don't want to give you guns in New York. They just don't want to give you guns. As a police officer, or as a retired police officer, when and if you go to the city of New York, you may be in a trick if you bring your gun. So generally, police officers can carry under what I believe is called HR. Gosh, what is that? I'm drawing a blank. I don't know. It's just some bill that was, or some law that was signed by President Bush, G.W. Bush, after 9/11, right? In order to keep us all safe, right? More police officers carrying to stop the kind of foolishness that was going on. So in order to stop all that, in order to keep going with that, but the city of New York said, we don't care. You can't carry here, police officer or not. So there are some maneuverings that you can go through in order to carry your weapon in New York, or a concealed carry. So be very, very careful if you're an auxiliary police officer or a retired police officer. But the city of New York, the state of New York, they don't want you getting guns and all that kind of stuff. So now they want to say gun applicants in New York will have to submit their social media accounts for review. Of course, this is a step. They want to make sure that nobody's that you're not threatening people, you're not part of a militia, gang, you have no negative intentions and all that kind of stuff. They know that this is going to be challenged. They know that they're going to lose this in federal court again, but in the meantime, they waste another 2-3 years of not giving good people their guns. From NPR, as missed warning signs pile up in investigations of mass killings, New York State is rolling out a novel strategy to screen applicants for gun permits. People seeking to carry concealed handguns will be required to hand over the social media accounts for review of their character and conduct. It's an approach applauded by many Democrats and national gun control advocacy groups, but some experts have raised questions about how the law will be enforced and address free speech concerns. Some of the local officials who will be tasked with reviewing the social media contend, it says content, but I believe it means to say contend, also are asking whether they'll have resources, in some cases whether the law is even constitutional. It's not. It's going to be struck down. I can almost guarantee it. Now, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a lawyer at all, although I did stay in the Holiday Inn last night. Let's see what else we got here. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about all these different stories and stuff. Okay, everyone. So we're going to finish off this video right here, real quick, with the Secret Service scandal that has been going on. If you have been paying attention at all to the what is that? The January 6th hearings, then you know what's been going on with all that's going on. A lady named Cassidy Hutchinson reported that she had heard that after President Trump, the day of the January 6th, the day he gave the announcement, or right after he gave his speech, that he got into the Beast, his car in the motor pool there, and started to make their exit, and they left going towards the White House. And so, but he, being the president, wanted to go to join the marchers who were going down and take over the Capitol and then march with them. Can you imagine it? Well, let me finish the story here. So apparently he got upset because the head of the Secret Service detail is like, listen, it's not safe. If you haven't been paying attention to that whole mess, it's just a debacle. They knew being the president, knew that that people had weapons, wanted to take the metal detectors away. It's just a crazy story that they've been telling. So they wanted to take the metal detectors away. They knew that people had these different weapons and bear spray and flag poles with sharp ends on them and stuff. And the president wants to get out in the crowd and walk with these people. As if he never heard of JFK or whatever. So Secret Service detail says, no, you can't do that. We're going to take you back to the White House where it's safe. This man gets upset and pulls a tantrum and tries to jump and tries to grab the steering wheel to try to take over the vehicle and drive the Beast and go where he wants to go. They're like, please, Mr. President, take your hands off the steering wheel and all this kind of stuff. So the January 6th inquiry, the inquisitors want to, get a hold of the text message from the Secret Service. Secret Service says, listen, we did some kind of system purge, upgrade, or whatever. We don't have them. We did a complete system upgrade. Now, I can imagine they're on a different server. They're not on Verizon or whatever, Sprint, whatever, T-Mobile. So they're not in any of these, routine servers, I would imagine. I don't really know. But those text messages are gone. Now, the theory and the story is that, listen, it was just an accident. It was already deemed ready for an upgrade, but we just didn't get around to doing it and all this kind of stuff. So I'm not believing that it was just happened to be coincidence that this particular day, the January 6th, that all these text messages are gone. So remember, January 6th was 2021, and they did it. So back in February of 2022, they knew that they didn't have, that they, this being the Secret Service, knew that these text messages were gone, deleted, destroyed, whatever. And they didn't tell anyone until July. For 5 months, you knew these subpoenas were coming. You knew that the inquisitors were going to want to figure out what happened, read the text messages, listen to whatever kind of evidence was out there. I mean, they've been reading or listening to the radio transmissions. You know they're going to want to read the text messages, but lo and behold, these are all gone. Listen, they got to have been so damaging, so embarrassing that the Secret Service just said, listen, we'll just take the embarrassment, because this is their job, right? Their job is to protect the president, not only, of course, if you watch the movies, not only to protect him physically, but to protect his reputation, right? And this is part of what they do. It's part of protecting it. So they'd rather be embarrassed than to have the president embarrassed. So, I mean, that's admirable, but it's unacceptable at this point. We need to know what's going on. We need to figure out what's happening, and the inquisitors need this information. But apparently it's gone, and what are you going to do about it? It's gone. So, gone, destroyed, deleted forever in a trash can, delete, overwrite, all that stuff. So this is the problem of what's going on here, and the mysterious and maybe criminal disappearance of the Secret Service January 6th text messages. I'm reading from Vox. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it just goes on to all these. There's a criminal investigation going on, right? Because it's all deleted, right? And the spokesman for the Secret Service claimed that this was part of a long planned system migration, but the erasures have now spurred a criminal investigation after investigators could find only a single relevant text message from 24 agents subject to a congressional subpoena. The DHS, Department of Homeland Security Inspector General, had known about the erased messages since February, but had not said anything. This prompted a joint statement on Wednesday from Representatives Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney, the chair and vice chair of the subcommittee. We have concerns about the system migration that we have been told resulted in the erasure of Secret Service cell phone data. The U.S. Secret Service system migration process was formed on January 27th, 2021, just 3 weeks after the attack on the Capitol, in which the Vice President of the United States, while under the protection of the Secret Service, with steps from a mob hunting for him. So remember, January 6th and January 27th, they did the system migration. Four House committees have already sought these critical records from the Department of Homeland Security before the records were apparently lost. They've been gone for a long time. Additionally, the procedure preserving content prior to this purge appears to have been contrary to federal records retention requirements and may represent a possible violation of the Federal Records Act. Yeah, so my time in law enforcement, right? So every state, I would imagine, has some type of records retention that is guided by the state. And so, my time in IA and internal affairs and other things, we couldn't destroy records for 18 months or a year or whatever, state mandates were. And so that's exactly what's going on here. You got to keep these records, and they don't have them, and they know they should have kept them. Again, I'm going to go back to, they'd rather take the embarrassment, maybe suspend some people, maybe fire some people, transfer some people, whatever, because they're going to protect the president's, not only his physical safety, but also his reputation. The text messages have become increasingly vital after the testimony of former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, who recounted an astonishing scene where former President Donald Trump attempted to wrest control of a Secret Service vehicle in order to join the crowd at the Capitol on January 6th. Hutchinson relayed a story as it was told by Tony Ornato, a top White House aide on detail from the Secret Service, and Bobby Engel, the head of Trump's security detail. As Hutchinson related it to the public hearing, Trump became enraged when agents tried to take him back to the White House and not to the Capitol. "I'm the effing president. Take me to the Capitol now," Trump reportedly exclaimed before reaching for the steering wheel of the Secret Service vehicle. He then lunged at the clavicle of an agent trying to restrain him, Hutchinson said. Listen, if you haven't watched that Immediately after her testimony, anonymous Secret Service agents told several outlets that Ornato and Engel are prepared to deny that this happened, but neither had testified about it under oath. in its hearing on Thursday. What the heck happened? The committee said other anonymous sources had corroborated what Hutchinson said. So this is why the text messages are gone, because they don't want to back up that particular story. Now it's just he said, she said, and we paint this Cassidy Hutchinson, who's fairly young. I think she's like 25 or something like that. Is not recalling correctly or something like that. So listen, that's what's going on here. This is supposed to be the world's finest protection agency, Secret Service, and all that. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, if they're gone, they're gone. So some people are probably going to get fired, reassigned, or disciplined somehow. But that's where we're at. So let me know your thoughts, your opinions about anything, any of these stories. You think it's okay for the Secret Service to be deleting messages and purging systems? What do you think? What are your thoughts about the chief of police using the N-word and just so cavalier with it? Do you think the black officer there did the right job, the right thing? Pointing them out and recording things, then resigning. And what are your thoughts about New York and their, refusal to grant people their Second Amendment rights? And what was the other story we talked about here? I can't remember now. What was the other story I talked about? Anyway, let me know your thoughts, your opinions, and all that. Thank you so much. Much love and peace, everyone.